It is a great pleasure to welcome Rachel Cousins on this podcast. She is a wonderfully talented musician from St. John's, Newfoundland. How you say, Rachel? Thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Mhm. So, first question. So what are you up to right now? Are you currently in school or?
So I graduated high school in 2019. I didn't go back to post-secondary just because my music is my main focus. My
Mhm.
parents have always been really supportive of that too. So I didn't go back to post-secondary, just focused on my music. I've been working part-time as many musicians have to do just to keep yourself above water. But yeah, I work part-time and I'm just focusing on music right now, full-time, writing, recording some new materials, going to ECMAs next month in a few days actually. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a few things in the works.
Cool. Tell me about the East Coast Music Association Awards.
Yeah, so the East Coast Music Awards this year are up in Nova Scotia. East Coast Music Awards are really important, especially like to Newfoundlanders. We obviously have Music NL, which is an amazing group here for Newfoundlanders, but East Coast Music Awards just allows us to like be on that bigger platform. It's great to have all the musicians. Like there's so many of us from here going up to ECMAs and to like mix, like the music community from the mainland and also from Newfoundland is always really nice and we get to see people we haven't seen in years. So yeah, I get to go up there and I'm doing two showcases this year, which I'm really excited about, one with a full band and one acoustically. So
Mhm.
yeah, I leave on the 3rd to go up to Nova Scotia for that.
No, 3rd of May, I'm guessing.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm. So I have not had the fortune of going to St. John's or Newfoundland in general. So what should I expect if I come there, if I come to your neck of the woods for the first time?
Yeah, to be honest, a lot of people, if not everybody, loves coming to Newfoundland, like to visit. It's just one of the most magical places to come if you've never been. It's like it's very different from anywhere else. I've traveled a little bit myself, internationally, and Newfoundland is just different than any other place that I've been. People compare it a lot to places like Ireland and stuff like that. But Newfoundland is just so different to come home to. And I love the fact that I'm a Newfoundlander and I get to come home to Newfoundland. It's like a mix between like a rural place and like a city. So yeah, there's a lot of dwelling going on in Newfoundland. The population is going up day by day, but the music community here is what stands out so much because it is like traditional folk Irish Newfoundland music,
Mhm.
but just like the music community here in general is just so much closer because it's an island. So everybody knows each other and the music community is very supportive of each other here. So yeah, like Newfoundland is just like an awesome place to come home to, but to visit it for the first time, everybody falls in love with Newfoundland.
Well, yeah. It is also the setting place for that great musical, Come From Away, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Mhm. And that brings me to one of the previous guests of the show, Abigail. You and her
Mhm.
performed the costume party musical number for it. And
Yeah,
that's
we did. We
wonderful.
recorded that one together, a nice cover of that, and got asked to be a part of that project, which is so cool.
Mhm. What is the meaning and significance of that particular musical to yourself and to the state of Newfoundland in general?
Yeah. So Newfoundland had a lot to do with the 9/11 attacks. We had a lot of people come here when all the flights and stuff got, rearranged when a lot of airspace is closed. Newfoundland, well, Gander specifically, offered a spot for people to come. So when the plane landed, sorry, in Gander, they filled up hotels, they filled up schools, anywhere that they could put these people just trying to get home. They, were in Gander for a few weeks. And that's what Come From Away is based about, is just like having these people that have never been to Newfoundland just dropped off to Newfoundland in the middle of this like horrifying tragedy.
Mhm.
It just talks about that beautiful story. And I saw it on Broadway, myself and my mom and my aunt Lori all went to see Come From Away on Broadway in New York. And I just remember how much we cried because we were like, we were from Newfoundland in these seats and nobody else knew that we were from Newfoundland. But just to like watch the story being portrayed about my home on a big stage like that, it's amazing. I think that, people from Newfoundland, especially musicians, have been waiting forever for something like this to happen for Newfoundland, like something big like that. So for a big musical like that to be to tell this beautiful story about the people of Newfoundland. Yeah, it did really well, and it's such a beautiful musical. Like coming from myself who saw it firsthand, it is such a wonderful musical.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. So you mentioned
Mm,
that you graduated from high school in 2019. I did
mhm.
when I was in 2017, and I never looked back.
Yeah.
So I wonder if your high school experience resembles that one Vitamin C song. I don't know. The title leaves me, but yeah, it's about high school.
Yeah, honestly, I was really lucky to have like a pretty bearable experience in high school. I suffered a lot in junior high. My junior high experience was awful. I'll never ever wish to go back to junior high. I would never wish to be that age again. But I really liked high school. I transferred to a different high school than what I was supposed to go to so that I could take part in the music program there. So high school was tough just because I was somebody that was like always trying to find myself, just always like intellectualizing and always trying to find myself in high school. So it was tough for that reason, just because I'm an artist and I have like artist brain and whatnot. But I was really lucky to actually quite enjoy high school and learn a lot more about music and theory and all that kind of stuff. So high school was actually a bearable experience for me, lucky enough. But junior high was a different story.
I see. Yeah, right. The
Mm.
song is Graduation, Friends Forever, something, something.
Oh yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's the song I was referring to.
Mhm.
I'm guessing junior high to you is from grade 6 to 8, right? Or something like that. Yeah.
It's seven. Well, and now it's 6 to 9. But when I was going
Oh.
to junior high, it was only 7 to 9. So things have
Mhm.
changed again since I was in junior high.
I see. Yeah. So, what are some of the bad things that I guess you've experienced there that I guess still to this day, affects you in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a big part of like my career is talking to schools. I travel to different junior highs and elementary schools to talk to kids about the importance of anti-bullying and mental health. Because when I was in junior high, I never had a young person that was going through the same things come into the school and talk to me about it. And I believe that that would have been really beneficial for me if a young person had come in and say, I was bullied, stop the bullying, blah, 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 blah. It like really would have helped my situation. So now I take that upon myself to go to schools and talk to kids about, because I was bullied for 3 years of junior high. Just I was always like the smaller kid, and I, was a musician, and I was always the weirder kid. I was like loud if I was comfortable around people. I was just comfortable around, people that I thought I was okay being comfortable around.
Mhm.
But people just thought I was too much. They thought I was annoying. So I suffered for 3 years. It was like a really horrible experience. And then it finally got to the point of like physical bullying, which is like just something that nobody should ever, ever, ever have to experience. So yeah, eventually got to the point where it was just so unbearable. So we put me into a new high school instead of going to high school with these bullies. So once I got clear of all of those people, then I had to like take myself to therapy and work through those things, because, as much as people say like, words can't hurt me, or like they're just words, blah, blah, blah. Like hearing something so many times for 3 years, it'll genuinely start to affect you. And you do carry that with yourself. And you start to believe these things that people are saying about you, that you're worthless, or that people would be better off without you, or that you're not good at what you're doing. So I believed that for a few years. And I had to go through things like therapy and all that kind of stuff just to like get over that. Um, I don't think I'll fully ever be over it. I found forgiveness for everybody. But there's just like a certain level of when you're that young, it just like kind of stunts your growth in a way, if that makes sense. Being told negative things. Like I think that it'll have an impact on me for the rest of my life, but not necessarily a negative one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. Virtually everything you've said so far is something that I've experienced too, except that the bullying and the social ostracization and the name calling,
Mhm.
the vicious lies did not stop when I reached high school. In some ways, is still ongoing, and that's why,
Right.
even though I like learning so much, even though I like learning a lot, I like to find out about different academic disciplines. I cannot stand school, the school environment. It is, there's always a dual requirement in that, you have to excel at school, obviously, but on the other hand, you have to get on with people around you, which I was never given a chance to do so, if you know what I mean.
Right. Right. I'm like 100% a believer that not everybody is like the school person. Like I genuinely believe that I'm not a school person. I'm not somebody to be able to sit down in a group full of like other people my age And I'm not one to like start conversation or try and like be, I'm not good with that kind of stuff. So I totally get what you're saying. I've never been a school personality. And I think that there's something special about people that go through these things and they're like always the person to be picked on. I genuinely believe that there's something like special about people like that, because why else would you be ridiculed? Like, you're ridiculed for something, your talent, your intelligence, the way that you learn different from other people, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's always something for somebody to pick on you for. However, it turns out to be something that they're lacking in. So like that's kind of like how I helped myself. And like I still like talking about how it didn't really stop for you. I still like there's still people that'll try and get under my skin and like comment things and on like anonymous accounts and all that kind of stuff. But it just comes down to a point of like, you're being productive, like you have this podcast and like, you're doing all this productive stuff. It just comes down to a point of like, what's the common denominator? Like, these people are just talking for like no inherent reason. They're just, it's literally just about bringing them down to their level. So yeah, that's kind of what I like got out of the whole bullying thing. And that's what I tell students now is like, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the bully. So,
So to what extent are these experiences or your efforts to, make peace with them, play into your songwriting process?
yeah, this is a really interesting question actually, because I first got like apologies or like an explanation. I had written a song during junior high and I never played it until I left junior high. And then I played it at a folk festival here. And one of my bullies had heard the song, like they had seen the video on Facebook. It was like my worst nightmare at the time was, oh my God, my bully heard the song that I wrote about them. And instead I was greeted with like a paragraph asking for forgiveness because they had heard the song and heard what pain I was in. So I got apologies from some people, and like I guess that was the impact that like my music had on them. I wasn't able to talk to them and say, you really hurt me when I was at this age. So because I had written a song, they heard it, and that was like then their reason to come and apologize. So like music definitely has an impact. It's definitely my way of communication. I'm not one for like, I'm not all that good with words. I can become very like over emotional and not really know how to speak my mind. But music, it's like I can just write a song and release that and people know how I'm feeling or like what's going on. So yeah, like writing about my junior high experiences brought me a lot of peace at that time and brought me a lot of strength in speaking my truth just by singing the song and talking about it beforehand. It was like very, very healing to me at the time. So yeah, I don't regret ever like sharing my songs like that. And I still play them to this day and talk about how personal they are because that's like my strength now instead of a weakness. So yeah.
Can we find that song on streaming platforms? What's the name of it?
Left Behind is not released. It's all over like YouTube. There's videos of me singing Left Behind, but Left Behind is never a single that I've actually produced and released. It's just a song that is so personal that it's just like one that I play at my acoustic shows and talk about. But yeah, there's videos like on my Facebook page or on YouTube of me singing Left Behind.
I see. Right. It reminds me of the great indie musician Regina Spektor. I'm not sure if you know her. Yeah, she has this great song called Ink Stains, which
Yeah.
she's a Russian Jewish person, so the song is evocative of the Shoah, and because of the gravity of that song, she never records it. She only performs it live.
Yep.
So I've mentioned that I've listened to your latest album, Aura, and and it is I'm not what is it? What's the understating? I'm not understating it, but it is yours is probably the sweetest voice that I've heard in some time.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Mhm. So tell me about the title of that song, the album, sorry.
Yeah. So aura is by definition is like the energy surrounding a person. There's people that can see different auras. Sometimes I'll like be in a room full of people and I've just always been one of those people that I guess it's considered an empath. Like I can feel other people's energies and I can just like, sense that energy around them and that color around them. So I just love anything to do with spirituality in that way. And so when it came to naming the album, I was like really struggling trying to find something that like I actually related to, but aura just came up and I was like, I want this album to show like my aura, if that makes sense. So even like all of the album covers and stuff, it's like all pulling from what I think my energy field is like and what I think that I give off, like all of those colors and like the color bleeds and just all that kind of stuff was really like a cool concept to me. So yeah, we just kind of made the album into like what I would consider to be like my aura and my energy field and that kind of thing. It's like you get a vibe from me when you listen to the album kind of thing.
Yes, of course. And
Hmm.
what were the highlights of the recording process of that album?
Oh my goodness. Um, Honestly, I would say highlights of any recording process in general is like recording is actually a lot more challenging than people chop it up to be.
Yeah.
To be honest, I find recording a song like the most challenging thing about my career. I love recording,
Mhm.
but like recording is really challenging and like it can be very exhausting. I mean, you think about it, you're like trying to record multiple vocals and you eventually are just going blind or deaf to everything and everything's sounding the same and you're hard on yourself about vocals and da 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 da. So yeah, like recording can be really challenging, but I think the highlight of it all is like it sounds cheesy, but for it all to be that difficult and for you to be pushing yourself really hard to try and make a really good song. And then finally you hear like the comped vocals and um or like you just do a really good take and you just feel really good about it. That's like a really good highlight about recording. And there was multiple moments for songs that were like really vulnerable. And me and Dan, my producer, Daniel Adams, would just like talk about that and like how to put that emotion into the song. And we just like me and Dan recording an album is it just like doesn't feel like work at the same time when me and Dan are together. Like as exhausting as that task is, it's like we're just like in his home space recording and he's very patient and very good with directing me and that kind of thing. So I love recording, but it's definitely like one of the harder aspects of my career, but it is also very, very rewarding when you get to hear the finished product.
Mhm. So, do you remember the moment in which you know for sure that recording and performing pop songs would be the way you used to express your inner thoughts, emotions, and etc.?
Yeah, so I started out when I first started recording music, I started with like folk, rock, singer-songwriter ish genre. And I stayed with that for a little bit. And then I wrote Let Go with a few other writers here in the city. And we wrote that as a part of like a writing challenge. So we wrote that song, didn't think anything of it. And then when Daniel, who was a part of like the co-writing session for Let Go, he said, I really think that we should record your vocals. So I recorded the song, still not knowing what would be done with it. Like we didn't know if I was going to release it under myself because it was pop and I had only ever released like folk singer-songwriter stuff. And then eventually we just decided to release it. And Let Go is definitely like what gave me like the little push for my career. It was just the song that kind of blew up for me enough to just like get that fire lit under myself where I was like, oh, like this pop thing could really work. And then when we started writing more pop music, I was just like, oh yeah, this is just where I feel so comfortable. I love the like performance aspect of pop music. I love that when I do it with my full band, like my drummer will hit the sounds on his pad and make it sound like the album. I just love pop music. I think that it's so cool. There's a lot that you can do with pop music. So once we had done Let Go and I realized maybe that I was capable of doing pop music and that people were so receptive to it, I was like, oh yeah, okay, let's try this pop thing. So then when we did it, I never really looked back. But now I'm just so comfortable in my genre that yeah, we can do a pop album, but like let's put an acoustic song on there.
Mhm.
Um, we're like able to do that now too. So yeah, it's really cool. Finding your own sound is awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you've had two album released so far, at least according to Spotify. And yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, the final track always has like an acoustic version in it. So,
Hmm.
um, so who would you count as your inspirations for pop music?
Um, I love Maggie Rogers. I love SZA. I love Billie Eilish, Lennon Stella. I do listen to a lot of female vocalists. I don't listen to a whole lot of male music.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just love like my female pop vocalists. There's so many people. Like I listen to so many different types of music. Like Lizzie McAlpine is another one of my favorite artists, and she's like very singer-songwriter folk. But like I think that's also why there's like so many layers to my music, is because I pull inspiration from so many different types of genres and people. So yeah, there's like a whole bunch of different people, but all of those artists have one thing in common, and it's that they don't really stick to the whole genre thing.
Mhm.
I just think it works better for a musician to not be so obsessed with the idea of a genre, because you put out a like an album and it's pop, but it has a few acoustic things. It's like there's a song for everybody on that album. So I don't think there's anything wrong with like dabbling in different genres and anything like that.
So I wonder if you notice there differences between the way in which, say, a male pop vocalist and a female pop vocalist describe or express the same set of emotions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, like we intellectualize things differently anyways in general, like men and women. But I just find like when it comes to women's pop music and like women's R&B music, oh, like women's R&B, there's just something so magical about it. Like there's something so like healing about like women singing R&B music. I can't explain it, but I just love like female vocalists. I love that like in what was considered like a male dominated industry, there's so many amazing like female pop artists and just like female artists hitting the stage now and just absolutely tearing it up, and rap artists, like female rap artists are absolutely just like hitting charts all the time now. So yeah, I those are like some of my inspirations, but I listen to everything, to be honest.
Mhm. To me, my favorite of the breakup songs, and I have many, is "Dreams" by Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, so good.
No, right?
What a classic.
Mhm. And when you compare that to, say, another Fleetwood Mac album, I think it's "Go Your Own Way" and such. One is performed by Stevie Nicks, and the other is performed by Lizzie Buckingham. And I find that the difference there is pretty subtle, but there they are. From the male perspective, one thing that they focus on is often how the breakup experience make them feel, like,
Hmm.
and for the female perspective, it's often their memories of what it's like to still be in a relationship.
Very true. That is very, very true.
Mhm. I wonder, and I think, excuse me for getting a bit personal, but do you
Hmm.
find that some of your, I guess, some of the aspects of your own personal romantic life play into the way you can compose your music too?
Yes. Like it's like a joke like amongst musicians that the happier you are, the harder it is to write music.
Hmm.
Um, like I've been in this great relationship now for like almost 10 months.
Wow.
And it's so hard to write a song because I'm just like happy and content in a relationship for the first time in my life. And it's like so much easier to write a breakup song or like write a song about your boyfriend when you're mad at him. So like when you're happy and content, it's a little bit harder to write it. My writing does mimic like my life a little bit, but also like I write a lot of songs that in that moment I might not even relate to, like especially when it comes to co-writing and stuff. I'll write a song, like start writing a song. It sounds very personal, but like I don't have any connection to that storyline. This is also what musicians do, right? Like this is what a songwriter can do. Um, like Taylor Swift says all the time that like she was writing songs at like age 14, 15 about things that she hadn't exactly gone through yet. And you like that, musicians, that's like part of our talent, is like being able to be a storyteller.
Mhm.
So yeah, like where my life is at definitely affects my music, but I'm also still able to like get into this imaginary world and make up fake little characters and a fake little storyline and just write a song about something that doesn't really apply to me in that moment.
I see. Well, you
Mhm.
did mention that your parents are quite supportive of what you're doing. So, I wonder if part of your music taste is influenced by either your mom or your dad.
Yeah, so like growing up, my house was like I'm the only musical person in my house, but my family loves music. I grew up listening to like there was always like Meatloaf playing or like Bon Jovi. I loved Avril Lavigne and like Kelly Clarkson. That was like who I listened to a lot of the time. I remember finding my mom's like Bad Out of Hell album, like the little CD, like in so yeah, it's always been like kicking around my house is all these like musical inspirations. And um I think like the first glimpses of things was when I would sit in the kitchen as a little girl, like on the floor with my Barbie iPod and listen to Kelly Clarkson and then like sing it back and do like these whole like world tours in my room and be performing like Kelly Clarkson and stuff. It was just always what I did. Like it sounds like the cheesy little girl that wanted to be a singer, but it's genuinely what I always did. And my parents were always so supportive and always showing me new music. And yeah, my parents have like never had a day where they ever tried to get me to do anything other than music. They've always been like really supportive and I've just seen it in me since I was a little kid that this is all I wanted to do. So they've always been really good.
Yes, do you remember any like posters of pop idols strung across your room now or back then?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I loved Avril Lavigne. I still love Avril Lavigne, but I remember I saw her here when she was in the city when I was like probably no older than 10. So yeah, I loved her. I had posters of Avril Lavigne. I had a poster of Rex Gowdy, who's a local artist, but he killed it on Canadian Idol and stuff. So a lot of people know about Rex Gowdy, but I was obsessed with Rex Gowdy. So I had a poster of him. Loved my Hannah Montana. Always like loved Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana. I would like copy her world tours in the show and do them in my bedroom too. So yeah, I was just like always very curious about like the pop star life. I even remember like my early birthdays, my mom like rented a limousine and got like my friends' nails done and my nails done and like put me in the limousine and sent me off like we're a bunch of pop stars. Like it was just always that for me, like always just obsessed with that whole thing, that whole lifestyle as a little girl. So my parents were always like really supportive and happy to offer it to me.
Well, yeah. I've never been in a limousine before. What's it like? Yeah, what's it like being on that on
Oh,
one?
it's great. It was literally like I just remember I was probably like 12 and there was just a handful of me and the girls and I was dressed up in a Hannah Montana costume and we were just in this little limousine drinking like apple juice with our nails done, singing Hannah Montana. It was great. It was really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the one with the Best of Both Worlds song, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very it's a somewhat embarrassing thing to admit, but I first learned my English, it's my second language actually, through watching many Disney Channel shows, and Hannah Montana was among them.
I've heard that before. I've heard a lot of people say that like they learned English as their second language because they were watching shows like that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Interesting.
so what of Miley Cyrus that appeals to you? I understand that she released a new album, so yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so the new album is just amazing. I listened to it yesterday for the first time full through. Oh my God, her new album is so good. I think that it's very new and it's very fresh. I've always loved Miley Cyrus because of how transparent she is.
Mhm.
I love that she talks about like her struggles with mental health. It means a lot to me as an artist that struggles with that kind of stuff to see somebody still pursuing it and doing well and saying like you can do it regardless of what you suffer with. So I've just always loved her. I love that she's had her times of like trying to find herself in the public eye and has never lost like that sense of grace about herself.
Mhm.
So I've always really loved her. I think that she's like such a role model for young people and she's releasing really great music and like just with all of her like life struggles that have been thrown at her, I just think that she's like a very resilient person. So yeah, that's why I've always really loved her from a child. Like it's like one of those people that you grow up with. Like I grew up with Hannah Montana and now she's Miley Cyrus. And as a young musician, having Miley Cyrus is like a whole nother thing. Like I idolize her as well. So it's really cool. It's like coming full circle with Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus.
Mhm. And she has an album released in 2015, I believe. It's titled Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets. It's a
Yeah,
very weird album.
yeah, yeah. She had a little bit of a like a funky time in her career where she just like was very experimental.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think it was the Wayne Coyne, the Flaming Lips were
Yeah.
part of the album's production, and I actually met one of the guys who were involved in that production too, Ariel Pink. He's
Oh, okay,
also
cool, cool.
yeah, he's also a very wonderful musician, indie pop
Mhm.
artist. So, since you've mentioned the topic of mental health, and before asking you my next question, for the sake of tackness, I'm going to mention that one Instagram post you posted on what, June 27th of last year. So, is it okay if
Yeah,
I could breach that territory?
yeah, of course.
Um, so I guess I hope you don't mind if I, quote from it a bit.
Oh, of course. No, go ahead.
Okay. So it says, I've had a lot of people ask where I've been lately, and I finally feel like I can be open and honest with everyone about my struggles with my mental health as of lately. Only a few weeks back, I found myself at my lowest point, physically drained, constantly sick, anxious, and overwhelming depressed. I felt as though I had completely failed myself as I had come so far since a close attempt in March of 2020, which had put me in the emergency room of the Waterford. I should say that upon reading that, I feel a great kind of kinship to you because I've I went through very similar types of traumatic experiences before, and I do feel a lot of the time, even to this day, that I've failed myself and other people in some other regard. So
Mhm.
in that sense, I kind of feel protective towards anyone who's going through that experience. Mostly maybe those who are younger than me. Um,
Mhm.
so do you remember I guess, what were some of the things that was going on around that time of the posting?
Yeah. Um, so honestly, like it's never been a matter of like what was going on in my life. At that point in my life when I posted that, I was very close to quitting my career. I just wanted to wipe my hands of music. I was very overwhelmed. I felt like I was not capable. It's one of the things that I struggle with the most, like every day, is just not knowing if I'm capable of doing music. Because there's a lot more that goes into music than just the music aspect of it. Like, am I strong enough to do this? Am I productive enough? Like, what if I'm not productive enough? Am I lazy? It was just like a constant cycle of just like being really mean to myself. And I was burnt out because I was always working. I had struggles with alcohol. I'm 10 months sober now from alcohol, but at that time I was still drinking a lot, and it was just everything came down on me at once. I was very mentally drained. I didn't want to stick around for anything. I didn't see like the value in anything, which is like a really, really scary feeling. And I also have borderline personality disorder, which makes things really, really, really hard to decipher because, like, one day I can be so good and so motivated and so ready to be productive and face the world. And then the next day I could wake up and seriously not be able to get up out of bed. And that's just how my life is. Which is really unpredictable and really challenging. And at the time of posting that, I was just kind of like trying to figure out what was going on, like why these ups and downs were happening. And it was just really exhausting. So when I had people like asking me where I had been, which was like not in a bad way or anything, just asking like where I had been, I hadn't been performing, I hadn't been posting anything. I just felt like I had really, really failed myself and a lot of other people, which made it so much worse, like the guilt of taking time off so much worse. Um, which is why I need to post that because I just needed people to know like what was going on. I think the more like transparent we are about that kind of stuff, the easier and easier it'll get to talk about it. I don't think that there should be anything to be ashamed of when it comes to posting something like that. I mean, if a musician had suffered a massive heart attack and needed to be in hospital and posted something, it would be all like everybody would be sending prayers and condolences and hoping for the best. So there's no difference in somebody posting and saying, I'm really struggling with my brain a little bit. I just need to take a step back and work on this and heal myself. There should be no difference in that. And I like the pain is very similar to anything when you're physical and you are that mentally sick. You are also physically sick. Like it goes hand in hand. I was very physically sick at that time when I posted that as well. I was constantly fighting flus and couldn't get any better. And so yeah, when I posted that, it was just like finally letting people know what had been going on. And then after posting that, it was like a great relief because people kind of seem to understand a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm glad that's the case. I'm guessing you know the singer Demi Lovato, right? Yeah, and in
Yes.
2021, I believe, she released a song called "Sober," and before that, she had like a near-death experience because of a drug overdose or something, and she was and one of those people that I grew up with too, with
Yeah.
Camp Rock and Sunny with a Chance Disney Channel shows, and I think
Mhm.
early prospects of stardom sort of like gets people to be very, very overwhelmed, and then they pursue illicit substances, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of like,
yeah, you were saying, hello?
yeah, there's just a lot of like when it comes to child stars, like with Demi Lovato and Justin Bieber and that kind of thing. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, it's like if the more pressure you put on like a child star like that, it's like they're put in a pressure cooker. Obviously, they're going to get to a point where they got to let pressure off, and that turns to drugs and alcohol, and then all of a sudden you're addicted by 20. So it creeps up on you fast, especially when you're that young and you get into it. Like it's only a matter of time before something becomes a problem.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've heard stories about like how it's not like their parents lived like a pretty middle class life and did nothing of the sort, but then when the child becomes a star and becomes basically the breadwinner of the house, the parents often like find some way, some sort of accounting trick to like basically steal their money, and so
Yeah.
they found out that they can not trust their family and such.
Yeah.
Mhm. I certainly hope that you're in a better state of mind now.
I definitely am. I'm doing a lot better. Just like through my sobriety and like different therapies and stuff like that. And also just talking to the schools and stuff. I've definitely found a lot of healing and peace within myself. So I appreciate that.
Mhm. I wonder, since one of your first singles being "Let Go," right? And what are some of the things you have to, or you are willing to let go of in order to become healthy again?
Yeah. I let go of the whole partying thing, like the whole drinking every weekend and like I've been like downtown St. John's. Like I went down for my birthday on April 18th. But other than that, like just steering clear of that kind of like lifestyle for me, it was just very, what is the word? Um, it was just like constantly giving me the platform to mess up, if you know what I'm saying. Mess up like with like if I was downtown and I was drinking, then like it just gave me the opportunity to mess up with like my self-respect and like just like speak out of like my own name and just like not have the most respect for myself. So letting go of that was really big for me. Letting go of like my own judgment on myself was another really big thing. Like you can't judge yourself while you're going through healing and you can't judge yourself like while you're trying your hardest. So learning that was also really important for me, that like judging yourself is really not doing anything for you.
Mhm.
Um, and like living in the now, so like letting go of like dwelling on the past and the future has also been very big for me. Just like trying to live in the present is something that I'm practicing still.
I'm very happy to hear that. If I can get a bit personal about myself a bit, I've never been much of a like party lifestyle person because one, I don't like drinking, or at least not in
Hmm.
that sense. There were like many of them in my first year of studying in Canada, and also when am studying my master's here. And
Right.
the second aspect is that I don't think that many of these people would want to be long-term friends with me, nor I them, because they only want to have fun, and that's the case with many of the people that I've encountered, right? And where I misread their intentions. I thought that I mistook niceness for like actual compassion, and
Right.
when that happens, they just disappear. They just walk away from me without leaving any word behind.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, I definitely get like what you're saying. Like when it comes to meeting people like in an environment that's not like going to offer you the truest of friendships. I totally get what you mean. It was like a constant state of meeting acquaintances, but never really having like a true friend. So yeah, I know how that feels. But I also like am somebody that believes it's so much better to have like one really good friend, one best friend that you can rely on than a whole group of friends.
Mhm.
It's like the more you understand that like a group of friends and multiple friends doesn't mean that that's any better than just like the one really good one. That came with like maturing for me. It's just realizing that like quality over quantity,
Mhm.
basically. That was a big like turning point for me in my growth, was learning that I'd rather have like some people around me that are really good and really loyal than a whole bunch of people that couldn't really care less about me.
I see. Well,
Mhm.
I do wonder if whenever you're in, say, either high school or well, high school or even now, do you feel the kind of the pressure to be, I guess, popular or even like other people?
Yeah, I did in high school. Just like try to fit in a little bit. Um, but like I mean that's like kind of part of growing up too. Some kids are so good and they'll like never try and fit in, which is
Yeah.
amazing, and I'm so happy that there's people that like do not change themselves. But I like definitely just like went with the like, what is like, how do I word it? It's just like I just went with the more basic side of myself in high school because I just wanted to fit in and blend in really easily, and I was just constantly like mirroring other people to make sure that they liked me, like mirroring their characteristics and stuff, um to like make sure that they liked me and to make sure that I was just liked. I mean, it was probably like a survival technique for me in high school just because of my junior high experience. But high school was great and I did have like a lot of good people like in my circle. Um but now I don't really feel the need to try and fit in or please other people. There's just like no sense. I think that it's like really cool now when I see somebody that's unique and like dresses their own way and is not like everybody else. I'm like, oh wow, they're so cool and they're so like, that's just so much more powerful to me than somebody trying to fit in. So yeah, I don't really try and or I don't really worry about what other people are thinking or anything like that anymore. It's just kind of a waste of time, to be
Mhm.
completely honest.
I see. Well, I hope I finally get to that stage because one of the first thing that makes me realize that I'm out of lockstep with almost everybody is that I don't listen to whatever kind of music that they would listen to at that time. I often pursue my own musical interests and tastes and whatnot, and
Mhm.
it would evolve into like shows or movies. And there was a time in high school where Marvel movies were a thing, and I watched a few of them, and it didn't make much of an impact on me. But the next day in class, everybody was discussing it, like they were all like picking apart all the little details, and they talk about that scene that follows 10 minutes of credits, and I totally miss all that, and I didn't thought the movie was that good anyway, but they think that it's the best thing ever.
Mhm.
And and it's and I do remember most recently when I was studying for my master's here, that uh upon 2 weeks in, really, I totally find myself out of lockstep with everybody because they like to party a lot. Obviously, there's a party every week.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously a lot of drinking and a lot of small talk, which I both of which I hate. And also, I don't find myself being able to, what do you call it, relate to everybody, and that I I don't think that I can be personal or talk about
Mm.
some of the things that make that I'm happy about or sad about or confused about with
Right.
anybody. And when I try to do that, they sort of walk away.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that there's like a lot of value in, okay, so this is like my whole new project as of recent to tie into what you're talking about. My
Okay.
whole new project as of recent is to like genuinely be your own best friend.
Mhm.
I think that it's like the healthiest way to be. I think it's such a safe way to be because at the end of the day, like who do you go home and go to bed with yourself, like every single night. You're not, like you're always going to be by yourself at the end of the day. And I just like think about it this way. Sure, you don't like relate to other people, and like maybe other people do not relate to you, or they just don't hear you in the way that you wish that you were heard. But then there's also so much power in being able to understand that, like, oh, but I can go home and I can talk to myself about this stuff and understand what I'm talking about, because maybe they wouldn't understand like my level of how I'm speaking. Maybe they're better off cut for somebody else. And I'll find somebody who's like cut for me, like who is meant to understand me and perceive me in the way that I'm meant to be heard. And I, like I said about like my relationship, I waited a little while to find that, to find like the other half, like the person that gives you what you give yourself. But while you're in that waiting process and like that period of time when you feel like nobody else is relating to you and like nobody else is hearing you, or like you don't relate, it just is like the perfect time to really like become like so close with yourself and like fall in love with yourself. And then you're just like, you're set to go then for life. Like when you have that relationship with yourself, like there's nobody that's going to make you like crumble for anybody else, and there's nothing like that, because like you're going to be your own best support. And like that does a lot for somebody's just like ego in a good way, and the way that they carry themselves. Like being there for yourself is really, really important. And nobody knows you like you know yourself. So I don't have many friends, like I really, really do not. um and I at first it was like that's really upsetting, like I'm a 22-year-old girl and I don't have girlfriends and like friend groups and all that kind of stuff. But like me, like I'm 22, but I also have such a good relationship with myself. Like sure, I don't have other people, but like when it comes to just me in my room at the end of the night, like I don't feel alone anymore because I'm with myself. So yeah, it just like comes down to the point of like taking advantage of that time that you have by yourself. And instead of being like, I'm so lonely, just realize that like you're never really alone, because like you always got your own back, and it does a lot for you when you start thinking that way.
Yeah, it was kind of a hard way to I learned it the hard way that one, I don't have to bend over backwards in order to fit in with everybody, because
Mhm.
I try this thing where I like create a inauthentic version of myself that is palatable to
Mhm.
everybody. But if the act cannot stay for long, because usually my real self, so to speak, would arise, and people would be surprised, overwhelmed, and whatnot. And yeah, of course, and secondly, it is even though you are, I guess you are encouraged to be kind to others, right? It's not your job to actually bend over backward for anybody.
Nope.
So yeah, I had to learn those two the hard way.
And that's like, there's a lot of power in that, like learning that you don't have to do that for anybody else. Like some of us, and I can tell that you're probably a little bit like this, that you'd like take your shirt off of your back for somebody else if they needed it.
Yeah.
And like that's a really great way to be, like to be that person for other people, because like people will remember you as being that really giving, kind person. But there's also a lot of power in like being your own person and never letting anybody else step ahead of you. Like you are the top of your own line. So like not letting anybody else, like not compromising yourself for people is really important. Like you do not compromise yourself for anybody. And once I started learning that, I lost a lot of people because of it. But like if you're losing people because you start enforcing that rule, then you're not really losing people. You're just like people are just walking off because they don't like the rule that you put in. So yeah, it's like that's a very valuable lesson for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I've lost a lot of friends too, because I either let them walk over all over me, or or they just walk out on me. And
Hmm.
one of the things I realize is that if I'm one of those people who bend over backwards for someone, and they wouldn't even reply when I say that, hey, I'm in a bit of a in a bit of a rut, and can I
Yeah,
talk to you? They would just be silent. Then yeah, it's not worth it.
yeah, yeah. I 100% agree.
So back to music a bit. It's a very cheesy thing, but I really like the band U2, Bono and the gang. they have
Hmm.
this great song called Invisible, and the chorus says, I'm more than you know, I'm more than you see here, more than you let me be. I'm more than you know, a body and a soul. You don't see me, but you will. I am not invisible. Do you find that when you perform music, there's also the added purpose of letting your music be heard, but also letting yourself be seen? Is that also what you are trying to do?
Yeah, 100%. I've always said I feel most at home when I'm on stage. I feel most myself when I'm on stage. Like being on stage is just like that's free game then. It's like nobody can judge me for anything that I do. Like I could do a failed cartwheel and like it's on stage and it's my performance, so nobody can say anything to me. Um there's like a lot of power in that for somebody that used to be the shy kid and like used to be the kid that wouldn't speak up for herself. And I love being on stage. And that's like 100% accurate, is like a whole part of an artist thing is to not only have your music be heard, but like for people to see you and like to really understand you. And I feel like people see me most when I'm on the stage. Like people can really look at me and see my love for what I do. So yeah, when people like when I finish a performance, somebody's like, I could see that you just love what you do, or like I can just really see your drive and your passion. And that's like my favorite compliment, is because somebody can see me, like somebody sees what I'm doing it for.
Mhm. Yes, I often have the same experience whenever, so I'm not a singer, but I happen to be very deeply invested in certain like academic disciplines, like say literature, philosophy, and such. And I think when I conduct my research and readings on that, and also when I talk about it, that's the time where I find I'm most being myself. And more often than not, people are sort of weirded out by this because they are not very much invested in what I do, but it
Right.
eventually I learned not to care all that much anymore.
Hmm.
And speaking of performing, you have a show on May 11th, right, with a
I
good
do.
lineup of musicians. So
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Yeah, so that show is gonna be kind of like a songwriter's circle-ish kind of vibe. It's myself, Paige Penny, Darcy Scott. It's like it'll be a really great night for like youth music. I love doing shows like this. Like I really, as much as I love like the whole pop production stage thing, I really love an acoustic show, like just a sit down and play your guitar and talk about your songs kind of show. It's like one of my favorites to play. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. And I say, well, like we've all three of us have written a song together before. So it'll be definitely like a night of collaboration and like singing on each other's songs and playing songs together. And yeah, I'm really excited for that show.
Awesome. Yeah, I've had the fortune to meet all three of them on this
Hmm.
podcast environment, and they're all very sweet people.
They are, yeah, very, very sweet.
Mhm. So, final question, and this is something that I ask all three of them and any and all musicians that I've had on this show. What does
Hmm.
music mean to you?
Oh my. Music to me means like empowerment, healing, solitude, peace. It means a lot of things. Music is like, it is very empowering to me, and it is like how I experiment with things and find out different things about myself. And I find out a lot about myself in every process of every song. Um, it's just one of those things, like I'm a firm believer that like there's people born to do this. And this, I'm not saying like I was born to do that. It's not me saying that whatsoever, but like there's people born to do music. And I know that for a fact because there's people that like live through their music that you can genuinely see it. I do feel like I was born to do this. Like if I do say that, like I do feel like I was meant to do this in my life, because there's no other thing that gives me purpose the way music does. And even when I'm just like ready to toss in the cloth and just ready to say like I can't do this anymore, I know that I'll never be a happy person if I quit music. Like I could never leave it. It's just like it's my happiness, and it brings me a lot of healing. Um and that like adrenaline rush that I get on the stage, I don't get anywhere else. And it's like life providing to go on stage and get off stage and have that feeling. Like that is something that I'm like it's required for me to have that. So yeah, I can't imagine like my life without performing, or if I had hung it up like when I wanted to when I was really sick. I can't imagine, because it has brought me like so much happiness. And yeah.
Mhm. In that sense, music can be life affirming too. Like you cannot imagine a world without it.
No, I can't. I really cannot.
On that wonderful note, thank you very much, Rachel Cousins from St. John's, for being on this program.
Thank you very much. I've had a really great chat.
Lovely. Likewise, and take care.
Thanks, you as well.